Hello and welcome to MumbleCast, the oddly structured, poorly researched podcast extravaganza. My name is Liam and as always I'm here with my co-host Kayla.
Hi.
Hello. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm just trying to determine how much gain this is. I felt like that wavelength was too big. Which is an interesting part because that'll take us to our topic quite nicely, but we won't do that. How are you? I also asked that. You said you were fine, right?
Yes,
I'm feeling
I'm
an
good.
Ian funnel. Yeah, if you listen to this, Ian, call out.
I don't know anything what just happened. Okay.
How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I've said this 3 times now, actually. How you doing? Oh, no. Okay.
Oh,
How's your week
God.
been? That's what I meant to say.
It's been good. I worked a lot, coached a lot, worked out some. What about yours?
You know, I think we could pretty much have this fast part of this podcast the same every week.
every
Just
single
record it and we'll just copy and paste it because we're always
do
like,
the same shit
I
every
went to
week.
I coached a train. Not that I'm not doing this in a mocking way. I am, but
Yeah, you are.
we both say the same thing.
I also went to the dentist. That's new.
Your teeth clean.
Yes.
Are they healthy? Have you got any cavities?
No.
You know, I didn't have any cavities until I came here, and somehow either America or the dentist here have told me I've had cavities that I've had to get fixed, and I'm like, what? And I'm like, I eat less sugar and crap that now than I did when I was younger,
Yeah.
as I hide my Zevia. But yeah, I guess that's what happens when you get older.
Yeah, I've never had one like that needed to be filled. But then I went 2 years ago to this dentist and he was like, there's one that's like the startup, like a baby one that we have to watch. And then today he was just like, it's still the same.
Was this what that's the moment I was like, oh, there's a couple in there that we're watching. I feel like they say that they're not actually that bad, but they say that so the next time they can do it so they can charge you so they can get all this money.
Maybe.
And
Mine's
maybe
been
I'm
2
being
years that
really
he's watching them,
pessimistic,
so.
but I don't know. I don't trust them.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't know why I don't trust dentists. It seems silly. You trust a doctor. Why would you not trust a dentist? But even doctors seem a bit like, I think it's the whole pay thing. You know, when I'm on an NHS, I'm not paying for it the same way as I am here, and they don't get money the same way, so I'm less cautious of them.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I should be. I had a podcast this week about, I think it was Dr. Satan.
Who's
And
Dr.
it was an old French guy. We'll maybe do a podcast on it sometime. Who was like a mass murderer and who was a doctor and killed people and stuff. Interesting stuff. But anyway,
That's crazy.
great podcast. Do go on. I've told you about it before. You've probably not listened to it. 3 Australian comedians. Nice. Anyway,
That's your favorite.
no, it's not my favorite.
I will figure it out.
All right. So what are we doing today?
Schrodinger's cat.
Schrodinger's cat. So we're going to talk about cats today.
Yes.
Talk about bats last week. 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago.
Last week.
Last week. I'm talking about cats today.
Yep. But not.
Is it a breed of cat? Is it a breed?
Yes, it is. It's like Siamese.
It's like Siamese.
Yeah.
So
That's what
there's
I learned.
2 of them?
Yeah. There's 2.
Wait, is that a racist thought? Wait a minute. Siamese is when you're like conjoined twins, right?
Yes, but that's also a breed of cat.
Yeah, that's like the wee ones that look oriental in Aristocats.
Yes. They sing We Are Siamese. Actually, that's in Lady and the Tramp.
Oh, is it? Mm-hmm. Oh, I thought it was thingamajig. You don't call them Siamese twins anymore, right? It is what did I say earlier?
Conjoined?
Conjoined twins. Is Siamese like an un-PC term? Probably.
Probably.
I'm not sure. Anyway, okay, so tell me about cats.
So, cats like to meow.
Meow.
Yes. I don't really care for them very much.
Nobody likes cats.
Yeah, well, I'm allergic to them, so
I
I've
like
never liked them. Oh my god.
So, we're talking about cats, and like so Sadie, Kayla's dog, is trying to get in on the action, so she's got something to say about cats.
Sadie, what do you think about cats? What do you think about cats? She's not going to talk.
She's gone silent.
She
She's
has.
podcast shy, I guess. I was going to say camera shy. Would you say microphone shy? Stage
She is
shy.
phone shy.
Yes, anyway, no, we're not talking about
Real cats.
real cats.
No.
Or, well, it could be real or unreal. We don't
Could
quite
be
know.
real.
We're actually going to take this up a level, boys and girls, ladies and gents. We're not talking about animals. We're not talking about movies. We're going straight up quantum physics today.
Quantum physics.
I know we have complaints about not researching things and sounding stupid. That's not going to change. But we're just going to try and explain something difficult in our stupid, unresearched manner.
Yes, we are.
Okay. Yes, this is going to be fun. All right, so if I was to say to you, before you've done any research today, if I said to you, what was Schrodinger's cat, what would your response be? And I want it just be really based on what you'd known before anything you looked into.
Okay, I would have said that it was a cat that Schrodinger put in the box, and it was it was the whole theory of like it's dead. When it's in the box, you can't see into the box, so it could be dead or it could be alive. So at that point, it's both because you don't know.
Yeah, and that's kind of was my interpretation of it. And I didn't realize until I looked into it that that's not really the interpretation at all.
Yeah.
That's what kind of the media has portrayed it as, and basically it's a way to explain a thought process of quantum mechanics, and it's just not how the media has interpreted it.
Yeah.
So
I think I learned that off of Big Bang Theory.
yeah, I will end up that and a few other kind of pop culture type things, and I'm sure it was mentioned. And what I'm about to explain, I did learn in physics in high school, so I probably learned about it a little bit then.
Yeah.
So to talk about this, we need to learn the basis of quantum mechanics. Now, I know it seems really complicated.
Okay.
It's like, oh yes, we're just going to go into quantum mechanics here, but it can actually be explained quite simply from something called the double slit experiment.
Okay.
Are you aware of the double slit experiment?
No.
Okay, so the double slit experiment was first sort of witnessed, you could say, back in like the early 1800s, about 1801, performed by a guy called Thomas Young. And what essentially is, he took a light source, and I'm going to explain it in a way it's kind of carried out now. He did it slightly different to this, but it was the same principle. And he took a light source, passed it through a piece of card at a slit in it.
Okay.
So imagine like a vertical slit. So you had a opaque bit of cards, and the light can transfer through, and just a slit. And then beyond that slit, you had another piece of card. And he observed the light upon that card that came through a slit. Now, it should be noted that up until this point, using Newton's theory of mechanics and the way kind of the world works, it was thought light was a particle. Okay. So light travelled as individual particles. A few theories and concepts proved this kind of not quite accurate, but nothing had been theorized or proven that it was wrong. Okay, I'll talk about the theory. Like, for example, if you put two beams of light across each other, they don't impact when they cross. So that suggested it didn't work as a particle. Anyway, so this double slit experiment, they believe light was particles, and if you sent a ball through a slit, what would you interpret should happen?
It would hit the thing on the other side.
Yeah, it would just go straight through.
Yeah.
Right? It's or if you had a tank full of water and you put a hole in it, you just have one stream of water and it hit right to the bottom.
Yeah.
Right? That's a vertical tank dropping down vertically. But what was observed is that on the receiver, the observation screen, we had lines of light. So you'd have one thick beam of light in the centre-ish, and then you'd have a space of no light, and then light, no light, and light. So it was like a pinstripe pattern of light that was spread out and kind of faded as it went out. And it was like an interference pattern, so something got in the way, it looked like. Okay, it looked like it was going through a whole bunch of lines rather than one.
Yeah.
Now, this is a little bit baffling if you think, how does this work if it's a particle? But this was when first it was introduced that must be acting like a wave. Because if you have, I said one slit, I meant two slits. So as the light came through, it went through two slits, not just one.
Okay.
Similar, same thing. Anyway, so it goes through two slits, not just one, guys. Sorry. That's important. So it goes through two slits, and you still get this pattern. But even then, you'd think it'd just be two marks.
Yeah.
So that was determined it must act like a wave. Now, are you familiar with the sort of wave interference?
No.
No. Okay, so this happens with sound, it happens with radio waves, it happens with waves in the water. So if you had a flat bed of water and you dropped a ball in at two separate points, the waves have that sort of peak and trough kind of motion. If two peaks meet together, they amplify together. Yeah. And if two troughs meet together, they amplify down. However, if a peak and a trough meet, they cancel out. So you would get the waves meet, and you'd see some spots where they'd rise higher, and some spots where they'd low deeper, and some where they just flatten off. Okay. So if you did it exactly at the same time from a set distance, like a known distance, you would potentially have a flat bed of water because they'd cancel each other out.
Okay.
Same thing happens with light here. So these light waves, or what's observed to be as light waves, come through, they amplify each other, they cancel out each other, so you get these lines of light and dark.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. I do want to see a picture of it though.
I've gone through a long way about that, but essentially light, which is believed to be particles, sent through these double slits, they turn into waveforms, interfere with each other and create this interference pattern, which is this kind of pinstripe of light and dark. Now this is interesting, and it changed the idea of what light particles are, or what is light. Following from that, in 1927, Davidson and Jeremiah, they demonstrated that it wasn't just light. Other particles did this. Electrons did something similar. Atoms did something similar, and so did photons. Photons are the parts of light, obviously. So it wasn't based on just light. Other particles and molecules even did this, which is really strange because they're not light. They're physical things, you know, like atoms and molecules, what make up everything. So at this atomic level, these particles were acting both as solid particles as well as waves. Okay. The next stage in this, though, this is the bit where it gets a bit more complicated. In the early 1920s as well, they were able to do this same experiment, but firing only one proton at a time. So a proton is part of the light wave, so it's one particular particle. Okay? So they would send one particle at these two slots. Okay? What we'd find on the other side is that the photon would travel through and it would land somewhere on their observation screen at one of the light portions of this interference pattern. So what you'd think would happen is it would just go straight through because it's a particle. They are firing a particle, but it doesn't. It ends up coming through the two slots. This is the really interesting part. Interferes with itself and then lands somewhere on the observation screen. Okay, so as I'm explaining this, somehow it would essentially either go through one of the slots or both of the slots, create this waveform somehow, interfere with itself and land on the screen. Okay. The way it lands on the screen, totally random. Okay. But it will always land on a light part. So you will never send a photon through and it negate itself and land on a black spot. It will always be somewhere along this line of light. Does that make sense? So somehow something that we know to be a single piece is dropped through a double slit, interferes with itself, and lands on the light space. If you were to do this a million times, you would end up with a full light pattern just like you see when you send a whole beam of light through. Okay? Which is interesting. How does this one particle act as this? It's a wave, it's unsure. Now, this becomes the really difficult bit to understand. They wanted to find out, okay, so which hole does it go through? It's a particle, it has to go through a hole. So what they did is they tried to observe which slit it went through and then observe where it landed on the observation screen. What they found, as soon as they measured which one it went through or they observed it, it acted like a ball and just landed exactly where it came from the slot. So by observing or looking at it, it reacted differently. Let me say that again. So before they determined exactly where it went, it acted somewhat randomly, but randomly within parameters, because it's going to land on a light source, and it interfered with itself. As soon as they observed it, looked where it's going, it didn't do that anymore, and it just landed.
Still in the dark spot?
I like to look at this, right? If I'm dancing and nobody's looking at me, I'm dancing like an idiot. I'm going all over the shop, right? There's still dance moves, so that's the sort of parameters, but I'm dancing. As soon as someone looks at me, I'm stopping. And I'm doing either something really simple or I'm stopping in general. That's essentially what the particle does. It changes depending on who you've looked at it. Nothing else has happened. So you've got Heisenberg's theory of uncertainty, I think it is. Is it certainty? Shit, of something, right? Which is if this electron, if you want to find out the kind of properties of an electron, right, you have to react with it to observe something. So imagine it's like a ball and you don't know if it's hard or not. It just, you see a sphere, and you want to see, is it squishy or is it hard? So you have to touch it. But as soon as you touch it, it's no longer a sphere. Sphere? Sphere, thank you. It's no longer a sphere because you've kind of bent it slightly because it was soft, for example. So as observing it, you've changed it. This isn't the fact because you've had to interact with this ball. You've not interacted with the photon. You've just determined which slot it's going through. So it's mind-boggling a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. So this is just observation. This is not, as I said, not interfering. So this led onto a couple of what they referred to as interpretations. There's two interpretations of this quantum mechanics. One is called the path integer formulation, not that one. There's two big ones. Many worlds interpretation, which I'm not too familiar with, but the one that's really important and the most popular one is called the Copenhagen Interpretation.
Okay.
I'm going to try and actually read this out because they explain it a lot better than I can explain it. Okay, I'll read this out. I think this is covering it. So, according to the Copenhagen Interpretation, physical systems generally do not have definite properties prior to being measured. And quantum mechanics can only predict the probability distribution of a given measurement's possible results. So this is hard to, like, a physical system, a photon, does not have any properties until it's observed. Yeah. It has a range of things that can happen within a certain parameters, but you do not know of any of that until you observe it. However, as you observe it, it hits one of these properties, and you can only then determine what of those properties it could have hit. As in, let me continue on. Actually, I'll read it out actually fully, and then we'll discuss it. Okay. Physical systems generally do not have definite properties prior to being measured, and quantum mechanics can only predict the probability distribution of a given measurement's possible results. The act of measurement affects the system, causing the set of probabilities to reduce to only one of the possible values immediately after the measurement. This feature is known as wave function collapse. So, essentially, a particle, the photon, can be everything. It's everything, and it's everywhere. As soon as it's measured, then all that disappears and it becomes one thing.
Okay.
And that's not like, oh, Jesus is everywhere until you hear him and then he's right in front of you. It's not like this sort of grand concept of something's everywhere. It is everywhere and everything until you observe it, and then it's something, which is a really hard concept to grasp.
It is.
And it's argued a lot and doesn't make sense because I am here. But am I only here because you're observing me? If you weren't observing me, would I be here? Interesting, right?
Yes.
This leads on to, like, some other theorists have spoken. If I observe something, I'm observing it, but I need someone to observe me for me to exist. And then someone needs to observe you, etc., etc. And there's kind of a long line of things, and I believe that's how a higher power comes in. We are all observed from the highest of whatever it is, a God, and that's how we ought to exist. If God was not to observe anything, then nothing would exist, or everything would exist, if that makes sense. Like, everything's a possibility until it's observed. So that's where things like multiple universes and the many worlds thing, because it's like anything can happen observed in the right manner, but it depends on how you observe it. And it's really odd and hard to figure out.
It is. This kind of goes with the podcast I listened to today. So I'm able to follow because of that.
Okay. So we've got the Slit experiment, which shows us that a particle can act as both a wave and a solid, like a particle, like a ball, sure. And then it has also shown us now that a particle can act in any in a number of manners until it's observed, then it changes to one specific property.
Yeah.
But when it's not observed,
It could be anything.
it could be anything. And from that, we've got the whole... So from that, it's believed that this particle is in a state called superposition. Superposition is in basically, it can be in any position. Anything in any shape, form, any characteristic until it's observed. As soon as it's observed, superposition disappears and it becomes a thing. Okay? So this concept, this interpretation, Copenhagen Interpretation, is what is discussed by Schrodinger.
Yes.
So Schrodinger, we'll get into him. Do you know much about him?
Like his life? No.
Yeah. Okay, so Schrodinger was a pretty impressive physicist. He dabbled in all different types of physics, from like color formation to waves to thermodynamics, all sort of stuff. In 1933, he won the Nobel Physics Prize for his waveform theorem, along with his with a partner. I can't remember his name, which is really bad. I don't know, but he won it. He did it alongside someone else. We had his wave formation, and he's got his equation now, which is Schrodinger's equation, wave, which I don't have with me, but it's something you can look up in the future if you care. He worked in Berlin, he worked in Oxford for a while, went back to Austria. This is all around the time of the Second World War, just prior to the Second World War and onwards. Really smart guy, also moved into biology and other things in between time. So during this time of like the early 1920s, 1930s and 1940s, he discussed a lot of things with Einstein. So him and Einstein obviously being leaders in quantum mechanics, they had a lot of correspondence back and forth. And some of the discussion was about this Copenhagen Theorem. And Schrodinger's cat came from another correspondence with Einstein, where they were almost taking the mick or trying to debunk Copenhagen's theorem, because it didn't make sense. And that's where Schrodinger's cat came from. So Einstein proposed that gunpowder is in superposition because at any point it could explode. And therefore it could be everything, it could be exploded and not exploded. And then Schrodinger took that further with the explanation of Schrodinger's cat, which we'll go into now. So, Schrodinger's cat is essentially, if you've got a steel box, you put a cat inside, a live cat. Along with that cat, you have put in a radioactive material, a Geiger counter, which is recording the radioactivity of the piece. And attached to that counter is a hammer, which is going to smash a vial of cyanide if the counter reads one change in molecular structure of the molecule, the radioactive molecule. Now, you're going to leave this in for an hour. This radioactive molecule, or particle, whatever, has got a 50% chance of degrading, but 50% chance not degrading. So you're not sure. It may or may not degrade.
Yeah.
So when you close off this box, within that hour, you do not know what has happened to that radioactive material until you observe what's happened. So that radioactive material is essentially in superposition. You don't know what's happened until you observe. Once you observe it, then you know what's happened. But in relation to that, so is the cat. The cat is in superposition. The cat is neither dead nor alive until you witness it.
Yeah, it's both.
So it's both, essentially. So what he's trying to show is that that's stupid. The cat is either dead or alive, and how can something so physical be multiple things?
Because you don't know until you measure it.
But until it's observed, correct. But the thing is, the half-life is observed through this Geiger counter, and if you're observing it, is the cat not observing it? So surely it isn't. It's basically trying to show you that something physical and who's alive can't be in superposition, because it's a take the mick, because you know the cat is either dead or alive, and that's not in question. You don't have to observe it to know it's one or the other type thing. So it's not an explanation of quantum. It's trying to bring forward how this doesn't make sense because of the physicality of it.
Okay.
You know, and I don't know if I explained that very well. I probably haven't because I don't feel like I have.
No, I think you did, but that's just like, so I think that a lot of people still think that it's the explanation of it, not the, like, making fun of it.
Yeah. And I guess in some degrees it does explain it, but that wasn't
their purpose.
The idea was to suggest that this doesn't make sense because it's a physical thing. It's not like it's a element or a molecule. It is in a place. So if you're wanting to talk about or quote Schrodinger's cat, what you really want to be thinking, what you really want to be explaining, is that due to quantum mechanics, there are things that are in superposition, or it's been theorized that they're in superposition, which means they don't have any properties, or they have infinite possibilities of properties until it's observed.
Yeah.
And when it's observed, you somehow affect its properties, or its properties are statistically changed from being near infinite or within a set parameter to one thing, and all those other possibilities no longer exist. Yeah.
It's how the quantum realm was born.
Well, it's interesting about this because this can lead into a whole bunch of other things, and it's actually like even that God mentioned. It's people can interpret this in many different ways, and the whole quantum realm isn't. So this happens. We've been shown it happens to photons, it happens to electrons, it happens to atoms and molecules.
Okay.
At what point does that stop? At what point does the observation beat that? Like, an atom won't act like that until we observe it, and then it stops. So is it only because our bodies have been observed that this is not happening? Like, did the existence of time start because something observed something, and everything expanded from that, and it was constantly being observed and changed? Or is there something else? Like, if everything is everything until it's observed, then something would have to have been observed before it became something. Because we are made up of atoms and molecules and electrons.
Yeah.
So what makes it become solid? What makes it become a wave? Unless it's been observed by something.
Yeah.
And then that's when you go into the thing of, okay, we've been observed, so we've become this realm. Is the quantum realm the observation of nothing? So like Ant-Man wouldn't make sense because you wouldn't be a physical thing in that realm. You would be everything in that realm. And maybe that is what it's trying to explain, that with all these sort of changes of colour and shapes, and it's all kind of like, I don't know, unknown.
Or everything. It's strange. I still don't quite fully understand what the consequences of it are. Are there any?
Not consequences in the such of, there's big arguments in science, well, not arguments, but there's discussions between scientists that do we live in a determined world or an undetermined world? Do you live your life
like the predestination?
Yeah, are you set to do exactly what you're doing?
Or do you have free will?
Or do you have free will? And it's a big part of it. If you have been observed, you are going to do exactly what the observation sets you statistically to do.
Yeah.
Whereas without that theorem, you would have free will because you have everything, but you don't. And it's like, what scale? What is it? A macro scale? Is it a micro scale? Or is it this quantum scale that it only works on? And why wouldn't it work on this macro scale if it works on this micro scale?
Yeah.
Unless there's something else altogether that while observing something, you have changed something. What is it that you've changed? Because if it is determined by the observation, what is it that an observation affects it? We don't know. Like, is it simply something as they're aware? What? How? No. And this is why no one's been able to prove anything that's a theory, and this is why it's not even a theory. It's a Copenhagen. It's interpretation of a theory.
I think this is the deepest podcast we've ever done.
it's just trying to get your head around it. Like, obviously, physicists and the smartest people in the world, like Schrodinger, he couldn't get his head around it. And he apparently moved away a little bit from physics because he got so frustrated with this interpretation. He moved into biology and other things because this was just like, it didn't quite...
It makes sense.
It's a phenomenon that can't fully be explained, especially when tried to be transferred to other parts of the world or other parts of physics. You know? It really is quite remarkable. And it's interesting because so this double slit experiment, I learned that in high school. I was 14 or something when I first saw this. And for us, it was more, light's a particle and a wave. That was all they were explaining. Yeah. But they weren't explaining the bigger picture of what it all meant.
Quantum physics.
And I wish they had. It would been quite nice if they'd had, because then you'd be like, ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, that would have been really cool to learn.
But, I had a rough idea, but I really didn't know this is what it meant.
Yeah, I definitely just thought it was... I mean, yeah, I had the general idea, too, of the cat version, but I definitely didn't go that deep until today.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know if I have explained exactly what Schrodinger's cat is, but I think the idea of quantum mechanics and how it affects, or how the Schrodinger's cats maybe come from this has maybe been explained a little bit. Maybe even more interesting than Schrodinger's cat itself.
No, I agree. I think that you did a good job of explaining it.
I hope so. Because this is one of those things that if you mess up, people will not call you out because nobody listens. But if they did listen, like this is something that someone might explain to someone sometime, and you want to make sure you get it right. Like nobody's going to say, "Oh, there's bats that do this and that," but
they might.
They might. You're right. As in, there are facts that we've learnt in this that I've told people from this.
Same.
So maybe it is, but I don't know. I'm going to look into it more, and I'm going to have updates for you guys about quantum mechanics and other things, because I think it's interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. I really enjoyed the podcast I listened to. It was just about the Schrodinger cat.
What was it called?
I don't remember. It was some BBC thing.
So let's start to listen to the BBC World one, and the first guy sounded really boring, so I was like, turn off.
It turned out not to be very boring. It was a lot of different scientists talking about it, and apparently they're doing some new research now with basically the same thing, but they started it with bacteria or a virus. Which one's smaller? And they're trying to do the same thing where it's like they put it in a box, not a theoretical box. Mm-hmm. And is it dead or alive?
But the whole point of the thing is you
can't measure it.
You can't measure it.
I know, but they're like doing the whole thing. They're repeating the whole thing.
But as in, it's only an experiment, and it's a thought experiment. It can't be carried out. The whole point is it can't be carried out.
This is my interpretation of it. I need to listen to that podcast and
figure out what they're talking about, because that doesn't seem to make sense. Also, what's quite funny on a few things that I was reading is like Schrodinger obviously didn't take into account the cat has 9 lives, so the cat's probably always alive unless you do the test 9 times. That's
hilarious.
Yeah, I thought it was very funny. Should have done it for a dog. But also the cat observed. So if something it didn't observe, like an apple, but then doesn't an apple observe radioactivity, so therefore radioactivity changes? I don't know. I don't know how that works.
Neither.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to read into this more, and I bet next week I've got some corrections to make. But maybe not. I don't know. I think you have to have some small grasp of physics in the first place to understand this even. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. You happy with that?
Yeah, that was a good one.
You got anything else to add to it?
I mean, you covered everything that I listened to in the podcast and everything that I already knew about it.
All right, so physics is hard, guys. I'm sure I missed out people's names, pronounced them wrong, or timing's wrong, but the main thing is learn about the theory of it, I guess.
Yes.
All these people are really smart and have achieved a lot, so kudos to them.
Yes.
We do
Good job, guys.
measly podcast, which is getting close to 100 episodes.
Yes.
We're like 15 weeks away, less than that, like 14 weeks away or something.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Go us. That's like, well, yeah. Anyway. All right. Take a break. And shits and hits.
Shits and hits. I have one.
How can we go from quantum mechanics to shits and hits?
I know exactly how. You know how I listened to a podcast today?
Uh-huh.
I searched quantum physics. Well, first I searched Schrodinger's cat, and like 2 came up. And then I searched quantum physics, and for some reason, the quibbler came up.
Quibbler.
It is a Harry Potter podcast where they go through each book.
I was literally just about to look it up on my phone. I was like, no, maybe not.
They go through each book, like a couple of chapters. It's like basically a book club. So I went all the way back to the first episode, and it's called, what is it called? Hold on.
You know, there's a Harry Potter.
You're a podcaster, Harry. And they're going through the chapters 1 through 5, and I'm like 12 minutes in, and I've already laughed a ton, and it's great.
So I think we should do an additional podcast, just even though we don't have any time, about something like that, like going over episodes of something or chapters of something or something like that as well. But we don't really have time for that. But it'd be quite good fun.
But in the future, yes.
In the future.
So there's that one, and it was really, really, really good.
Is it like a bunch of comedians or two people? Or
it's just two people, but they like go into it and they're like, guys, we're just going to warn you, there's explicit language in this and adult themes. And then they start talking about the adult themes of like child abuse and everything, but really they're just talking about Harry Potter. And it's hilarious. And then, so I'm only 12 minutes in.
Okay.
But that one's been pretty good. So, like 80 something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that one's pretty good so far. I'm on episode 1. And the other one I've been listening to is Oprah Winfrey's Super Soul, whatever. I don't remember what it's called.
Yay!
And stop.
Oprah,
Super Soul Conversations.
Oprah.
And it's really good too.
Yes.
You have zero to add about that. So I've listened to Brené Brown and Glennon Doyle and...
Glennon Doyle? God,
yeah,
who called a kid Glennon Doyle? Is that a guy or a girl? I don't even know.
But
Glennon.
I think like Jay-Z and Justin
Timberlake. Is Glennon a word?
Glennon? Yes.
Is that a name?
Yeah.
Glennon?
Yeah.
Like Glenn.
I hope she doesn't listen to this.
No, please do listen. Just tell me where your name's from. I could Google it, I guess. But it's an odd name. Would you name your kid Glennon?
No.
Anyway,
but Justin Timberlake and Jay-Z and like all these different people have been on it.
To provide?
I don't know. I haven't listened to theirs yet. They're on my phone though.
It'll just be some. Actually, you know what? I shouldn't diss them. I shouldn't mock them. I don't know. I'm sure it's good. Oprah is obviously very powerful, and she will only get people on that are interesting, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you enjoy it. I did listen to the one you sent me. I've got another one you sent me I need to listen to, and it's somewhat interesting. I don't like the audience because they just cheer at anything.
But
it's almost like
Oprah.
I know, but I don't like Oprah. I don't. She's fine. I mean, I just don't like this show. I'm not into that type of thing.
Yeah.
And depending on what you take away from it is good. Yes.
I think also The Rock may have been on there.
Rock's been on everything.
I have to see, but I'll send you his if so.
Okay.
You'll like that.
Cool. I don't know. The Rock's a little bit too preachy for me as well. I'm kidding. I love you, The Rock. I love you, Dwayne.
What are your shits and hits?
I don't think I have any this week. I'm trying to think if I've listened to anything or done anything new. I really don't think I have. Did I do anything? No, I didn't. Did I watch a movie? I didn't. No, nothing really.
Okay.
I'm trying to think if I did listen to any new podcasts either. No, same old.
Your favorite one?
This is my favorite one. That's a weekly one.
I said, which is called...
I'm not telling you. You have to go back to old episodes to listen.
Oh my god.
It's great though. It's just a comment. Oh, actually, I did listen to a new one called Hey Fam. Which is two guys who talk about sort of pop culture essentially. And I went to the first episode, which is 2015. So it's difficult to go back and listen to pop culture things because they're talking about like things that are happening at the time. Mm-hmm. So they're talking about like the Entourage movie and Batman v Superman. I'm like, wow, that was like so long ago. It's like 4 years ago. Yeah. But apparently it's quite good. So I don't know whether to just pick it up from now or go back and listen to old episodes. I can't figure that out yet, but I'll listen to the first couple and see how I feel about it. Okay. It's weird. They do it in like a bar.
Okay.
So there's like other music stuff going on in the background, which is kind of interesting. It's kind of nice we feel because it feels like some people are just sat in, but then sometimes you're like, fuck, that's really annoying.
Yeah.
So.
Like drinks clanking and stuff.
Yeah, a guy called Andrew Levins, and I can't remember his partner's name.
Okay.
His co-host's name. But they are Australians. More Australians. I love Australian podcasts. I know, I don't know why. It's weird. I like the guy Australian accents, or their ones anyway. They're from Melbourne? Maybe Sydney? Not sure. Mm-hmm. I think Melbourne. It's fine. That's about it for my shits and hits, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Alright,
cool. Well, fun episode. Next week we're going to do... Oh, you've been so good. Come on. What do we do next week?
Oh, God. I don't know. We will come up
We'll
with
do all the
something.
corrections to this episode and more.
Yes.
We'll figure out something else. As always, hit us on Instagram, Twitter, at the MumbleCast. Leave us a like and review, 5-star review on Instagram and iTunes, and then leave a comment. Don't mind what comment you leave, just leave 5 stars.
Yep.
That helps. And if we're on YouTube, we're on YouTube. It's just the podcast on YouTube. So if you want to listen to it at your office or something, it might be easier. We're on Spotify. We're on Google Play. We have a couple episodes on SoundCloud, but you have to pay for that, so we stopped. That's about it, I think.
Yeah.
Or anything else?
No.
No. The Android version, whatever that is that Google Play, probably.
Probably.
Spotify, find us there. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So if you go on iTunes and you type in MumbleCast, first of all, there's another podcast called MumbleCast. Scrap them. They've done like 5 episodes in the last 6 months. Get to hell. And then MuggleCast comes up, another Harry Potter podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Shut up. Get away, MuggleCast. You're not MumbleCast. Why did you come up before us? You got less episodes just because people listen to Harry Potter. Don't worry, we're going to get hits of Schrodingers cat. Because when you type that and nothing comes up, we're going to get it and we're going to explain it to people. We are going to be the go-to for Schrodingers cat.
Yes.
Oh shit. Uh-oh.
Okay. Us and the BBC. Yeah. That's all we need.
That's the 2 best media forms.
Yeah.
British Broadcasting Corporation and the MumbleCast.
Yep.
Cool. Anything else?
No.
Alright. In that case, I've been Liam.
I'm Kayla.
And it's been MumbleCast.
Bye.
Bye.